This is a great question, and it just so happens to tie in this video that I've been wanting to talk about for the longest time. The question is, how did you work through this? I have the same kind of mom. It took no contact for the most of my last 30 years. Also, even as a child, I never bonded with her. I always viewed her as someone I couldn't trust. So let's watch some of it together really quick, and then we'll get into it.
As much as I want to be one, I'm not a girl's girl. I hope that I can become a girl's girl someday, but right now, I would be lying if I said I'm a girl's girl. I support other women, and I feel so much joy and happiness for other women when I see them succeeding. I have the patriarchy so ingrained within me that I feel such a strong sense of like envy and jealousy. Like when I see a pretty girl post on Instagram, I have to be the prettiest, you know what I mean? I would love to grow out of this. I also was raised by a mother who was very, very judgmental. Like everywhere we went, very judgmental. Like I think that she also ingrained some of this into me, like to constantly be being jealous of other women and like picking apart other women and like constantly having to be better than them. Like I have to be the prettiest, I have to be the smartest, like constantly having to be like the best person in the room. I want to escape this so bad. Like I see like my mutuals on here getting more followers, becoming more successful. I feel jealous. Literally, why do I do that? Like I'm like, oh, you're getting successful, I want you to fail now. I've never really had like super close female friendships. I think these two things are related. I have a hard time like supporting other women, and the fact that I like have never really had strong female friendships.
And certainly I'm not suggesting that the person who made this comment is not a girl's girl. This is just like a narcissistic parent wound. This is sometimes called a mother wound, but I actually think that any narcissistic parent can give it to you. There is like that extra layer of internalized misogyny when it comes from a mother. And because the commenter specifically asked about a mother, I wanted to tie in this video sort of like a two birds, one stone type of situation. The thing that a lot of people don't realize about narcissism, because it's called narcissism and what's represented in the myth is like a love of oneself, of one's own reflection. Really, a more accurate definition of narcissism would actually be self-hate and self-loathing. And for that reason, becoming a black hole of validation, other people's emotions. And this is why it feels like sometimes narcissists like to feed on people. Hold on, this is all gonna tie together. Regardless of what you're trying to work through, those things are just manifestations of the real issue. Like they're the manifestations, but there's something else at the root. The root is that your narcissistic parent passed down a lot of self-hatred. For this reason, it's actually very important to know and understand that narcissism is not self-love, it's actually self-hate, because self-love is the cure to this. And it's very important also at the same time to not confuse self-love with narcissistic behavior. Thinking that you're better than others, thinking that you can do no wrong, thinking that you are somehow above people or like have a leg up on those people, etc. That is all narcissism. Self-love starts with the opposite of that, because it wouldn't be a projection. Narcissism is actually a projection, and it's actually like, it's kind of just like a dissonant state of mind. You know, it's like they on one hand hate themselves, but also because of that, and because that's such a dissonant feeling, they have to project this extreme confidence, this extreme like purity, faultlessness, sometimes even like selflessness, which is not really selflessness, right? If you're like projecting it and like bringing it up and talking about it over and over. They also externalize a lot of criticisms that they have towards themselves onto others, which is why your mother may have been very judgmental, very sort of like, you know, points out things in other women that she probably hates about herself, you know. And the whole thing is just very dissonant because it's this one big tangled web of insecurity that these people are always trying to pull you into one way or another, whether you be the scapegoat, whether you be the golden child, the flying monkey, whatever. They have like whole systems which basically externalize their internal world, which is very siloed off and depends on their mood and like level of self-loathing that day. It's all just like coping mechanisms. Again, we need to think about how do we invert this. So the self-hate, the self-loathing becomes self-love. The constant externalizing onto other people, like, oh, they're more successful, therefore like I'm gonna stop liking their posts. They don't need little old me, like whatever. It's like reframing those things as, instead of like external externalizing internalize. Well, I was a part of that, which is really, really cool. There's also enough room for all of us. You need to understand that like narcissists really only think in terms of lack. And so you need to always be thinking in terms of abundance. There's enough room, there's enough time, you're not behind, you're not too old, you're not too dumb, you're not too anything. Once you sort of rewire those beliefs about yourself, you will find it so easy to support people, cheer other people on. You also have to understand that the competition is all in your mind. Like just like the competition was always like just in your mom's mind, and you probably like remember yourself thinking like, why is she so mean to these other girls, like, or other women? Why is she so nitpicky and judgmental? Like, that's weird behavior. They don't care about her. Like, they don't know that she exists. Like, this is a one-sided beef. You need to really like internalize that. So like when you do that, that's a one-sided beef. The people that you're comparing yourself with are probably not thinking about you, and even if they were, it would still be like an imaginary beef, as nobody can compete with you. It's literally that simple. Nobody can compete with you because you're you and they're them. There is no competition. If you view it as a competition, you have already lost. Don't let your mom turn you into a constant loser inside your head, because that's what she's doing. Like, that's what her behavior is actually doing. The other thing that narcissistic parents do is they enmesh with you. They will do this sometimes physically, but mostly they do this like emotionally and relationally. They will become very enmeshed with you. So then the only types of relationships that you're able to have are these very enmeshed, sort of love bomby, sort of like roller coastery type relationships. And once you undo and like reframe your thinking as far as like how you should relate to other people, which is again, shouldn't be out of a sense of lack, shouldn't be out of a sense of self-loathing or any kind of insecurity. Once you relate to people out of things that you love about yourself, it'll become so much easier for you to be like properly detached from other people, where you don't feel like other people are always stepping on your identity, because you have to understand they're not actually doing that. Like, all of this is a projection, right? You live in a house of projection, and you want to live in a house built out of reality. So like, what is your reality? Not the reality that your narcissistic parent used to manipulate you. Think Wicked, you know, when they see what the great wizard was doing all along, like it was all just a projection. So therefore it can actually very easily be dismantled. You just have to stop believing that it's real. It's not real. Reality will not confirm anything that your toxic parent told you. Even when it does, you can think of it differently than how they would think of it. And that's really what it comes down to, is like actually getting out of that mentality where you're constantly like looking around, whom can I externalize onto, and like whom can I latch onto, and like what can I latch onto. You rebuild from within. Like, what do you love about yourself? The self-awareness in general, right? Because again, we're not trying to address the actual symptoms. So you're not necessarily going to think like, oh, well, why do I hate other women? Like, that's not a thing. That's a projection. That's maybe something that your mother feels that way. Maybe your narcissistic parent feels that way, but that's a projection. Like, you probably don't hate other women, but there's probably a trigger there. There's probably some shadow work there that you need to do, right? So instead of saying like, well, why do I hate other women? Like, let me unpack this from like a feminist like standpoint, or like a misogyny standpoint. That will come later. That might be there, and that's probably there. You will have a much easier time dealing with it when you're not reacting to those things out of your trauma, because our trauma, like, this is kind of what I was trying to explain about Huda, is that our trauma makes us very ignorant. It puts blinders on us where we can't see like our own behavior very objective. And like, a lot of people are afraid to deal with trauma because they're traumatized, like from thinking that they're going to have to deal with things the same way that those things like happened to them. But it's very important to remember that you're not traumatizing yourself again. You're healing yourself, right? So you can do that kindly. You can do that lovingly. You can do that patiently. You can do that with stops on the way. You can do that with breaks on the way, right? It's not ever going to be a finished, and perfect and like wrapped up in a little bow kind of process, because like other things will happen that will traumatize you and you'll have to work through it. Like it's a constant, like to be human is to be traumatized. That is the unfortunate reality. Like you deal with one, the next one happens. And the key is just learning how to heal yourself. Like the key is learning how to view yourself both objectively and lovingly. Just realizing like this is the only home you've been given. You know what I mean? Like your consciousness was given a home in the shape of your body, in the shape of your brain, in the shape of like your thoughts and feelings. Just like any home, it can be traumatized, neglected, it can be considered like ruined and condemned by all means. But it's like, okay, well, what do we do with that? Are we going to ever start the remodeling process, or are we just going to allow ourselves to disintegrate fully and completely? You know what I mean? There is at some point you're going to have to make that decision, and that decision's up to you. Like I said, really the most intimidating part of it is just thinking that healing your trauma has to traumatize you again. It doesn't. It is actually a whole different process. And it's something that you can uniquely give to yourself. Like being able to reparent yourself is a gift. You know what I mean? Some of us had good parents and that's awesome. But good parents teach you how to parent yourself and how to be your own like guiding light. In order to reparent yourself, you first have to build that relationship of trust with yourself, right? Like, I'm not going to shame myself when I make a mistake. I'm not going to shame myself when I have a thought or feeling or something that I don't like. I'm going to be curious about it. I'm going to be loving about it. I'm going to ask myself about it, and we're going to work through it together. Just me and me. Right? Sometimes you might need to bring in some extra help. You might need to bring in a therapist. You might need to try some different things like EMDR therapy. If you do struggle on your own, like if it's just not clicking, do not be hesitant to get somebody involved. I just think all this stuff is good to kind of try and think through in order to get the most out of therapy. Like these are good things for you to consider on your own and like write down, like maybe do some shadow work, journaling, one of those like stream of consciousness journaling right when you wake up, things like that. Just open up what's going on and, like I said, kind of get the most out of it. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. Please let me know what other questions y'all have. These are just some things I've learned along the way, and so hopefully that's a good starting point. Godspeed. Mwah.